Go to our next panelist, Ms. Isabella Ni. Ms. Isabella has over 10 years experience in the renewable energy industry itself. She's currently the marketing director of the GCL System Integration Technology Company. It's a global leading solar solution provider, and they've done many large projects. Ms. Ni and her team are responsible for the company's overseas marketing activities, including marketing intelligence, marketing communications, and strategic planning. Prior to joining GCL, Ms. Ni also worked in IHA's market and also Trina Solar. I'd like now to hand over to Ms. Isabella. Ms. Isabella, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex, for the invitation, for the introduction. And let me first share my screen. Yeah. So first of all, thanks to the organizer and our partner Alumni's invitation and give me this opportunity to speak here. So today my topic is the challenges faced the PV industry during the PV industry faced during the COVID-19 period and the growth of the demand for solar energy. And I will start with reviewing global solar PV market, then talk about the impacts of the pandemic, and end with lessons we've learned, as well as our solutions to drive sustainable growth of the PV industry. So the people around the world experienced a hard time last year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as to solar industry, in the first quarter last year, all third-party research firms lowered the demand forecast. And like the graph I'm showing here, the Bloomberg Renewable Energy noted that the pandemic was likely to make 2020 the first down year ever for the photovoltaics build. And in the most likely scenario, here is indicated as a scenario 2, the institute was expected 111 new builds in last year. And there are some assumptions behind that. And firstly, is that restrictions on travel have severely reduced the availability of workers in many countries. And some goods have been held up at ports and causing some project construction delays. Some auctions, like here in China, have been delayed or have had build deadlines pushed back, and which also would reduce the 2020 new build. And secondly, the global economic recession would hit solar harder than the delays we mentioned before. And back to April last year, we already saw some residential and commercial solar sales activity was done in the US and Australia. And that was expected to be a wide trend as entities save cash for survivors rather than any investment in business sectors. And the last concern was whether the outbreak had hit solar manufacturing in China. And of course, now we know that the answer is definitely a big yes, because all production here was halted and there was no sufficient raw material supply from inland due to a pause button on all the logistics here. And let's take a closer step to see how the value chain responded to the outbreak. Here I take an example of silicon material, which is one of the most important raw materials of PV module production. So the high demand in the international markets triggered component oversupply and price drops. Like here, the first box, the silicon price was over $8 per kilogram in mid-March. And then it further dropped to less than 7 as the lowest in mid-June. And because there was no price flexibility to increase near-term demand, and as government applied COVID-19 measures that reduce business activities, developer anticipated further component decreases. And several markets extended completion deadlines for projects. But actually, you see here the price up to July increased a lot because of supply shortage. But this is actually not the impact from the outbreak, and it's another story that we can talk about in another time. So we see that actually the outbreak has negative impact on the silicon side was in a very short period. This one is the module price. So as we know that module accounts about 50% of the total PV system cost. So it's very sensitive to the whole system price. And the expansion of COVID-19 and quickly turned the first quarter supply disruption and higher than expected component prices to a market with few buyers in the second quarter. And weak demand in the first half of the year result in module oversupply, leading to price drop starting late May until the July that's showing in this graph. And I think this graph here, we also see a little bit earlier in terms of the levelized cost of electricity in Gulf regions. And this one is the levelized cost of electricity in a global benchmark. So thanks to the great contribution from supply side of the component price drop, and now we are able to compete solar power generation cost with conventional power plants like coal and natural gas. And the graph here listed different power technologies. At the end of the 2020, solar PV was already cost competitive than coal in many regions where with abundant sunlight like Brazil and Dubai and Spain and Australia. And if we ending the tracking system here, it will further bring down the generation cost to less than $40 per megawatt hour, as it shows here in the dark orange bar. And however, the energy storage actually is still expensive. So ending that utility scale battery to solar system, or even with a wind system is not that cost competitive at the moment. And that is what we are moving now and what we are working now to bring down the battery cost. And how about the demand side? So major disruptions in installations have occurred across most markets, especially in residential and C&I sectors, as I mentioned in the beginning. And at first, the disruption related to supply chain from China, as we mentioned in previous slides. But as the supply bottleneck eased, the challenges grew through national confinement measures, such as tight restrictions and movements, and even the half of the non-essential labor across markets. The most noticeable in India, Malaysia, and Italy. So confinement measures have translated into the stop of installation work in many countries, and customer clearance and shippings and transportation have been reduced to a minimum or completely suspended, and it's still happening now in most of regions. So this slide records major policy changes in order to respond to the outbreak. And in some countries, like Germany, the government extended project commission deadline to allow qualified projects still can enjoy 2020 tariff. And some regions like Japan here in Italy, the government offered additional subsidies to PV installations in order to continue to stimulate the regional renewable energy development. And besides China, another global solar PV manufacturing hub of Southeast Asia restarted the production since the third quarter, and actually it helps to bring more modules can ship to country like the United States. And again, this is the global PV demand forecast from Bloomberg New Energy Finance. So, but this one is most updated. It's released in the last month. It turns the result that 2020 actually is another higher than expected year with over 130 gigawatts new solar capacity added to the grid globally. If you remember, as we mentioned that in the beginning of last year, the Bloomberg New Energy Finance was expecting 111 new additions in 2020, and actually it's more than 130. So it's 14% increase comparing with 2019. And countries like China, Europe, Australia, and Vietnam all exceed the expectations. And why that happened? It seems that the pandemic doesn't hit the solar industry. And here are some thinkings. So when people are not running rush to make money, and we have more time to think about sustainability, and to think about how can we live in a better way. And like the presenter showed, the why solar. So personally, I think that is a reason more countries presented their commitments to renewable energy since last year. Like Mr. Biden's administration announced the Back to Paris Agreement and China's commitment to carbon neutral by 2060. And all of this is from very top level to drive the sustainable growth of the PV industry. And the second reason is the energy independence requirement. So the pandemic lockdown actually forced the people to stay at home more than ever we did. And it turned out the result of residential electricity usage increase. Like in Australia, it installed 2.6 gigawatt rooftop solar systems in last year. It's about 18% increase compared with 2019. So Bloomberg New Energy Finance forecasted that at least 18% annual growth for global PV market this year, and around half of new additions will be decentralized solar systems because of several advantages, including sustainability and electricity price. So what solution we can offer to meet the power demand and to end the more decentralized solar systems? And before I dig deeper, so please allow me to do a quick introduction of our company. So GCL represents Golden Concord Holdings Limited, also known as GCL Group, is one of the largest non-state-owned independent power producers in China. And the company has over 30 years experience in energy-related business with total of 4 public listed companies in Shanghai and Hong Kong stock exchange markets, with total asset value over 37 billion US dollar at the end of 2020. The company also involves in business including semiconductor materials, natural gas, smart industry zone build, and mobile energy, and of course PV manufacturing. And GCI is the only Chinese company that integrates the full PV value chain from very upstream of crystal growth, wafer slicing, to the midstream of cell and module production, and to downstream as system integration and PV power station development and construction. And to the date, the company operates 120,000 tons of silicon, 40 gigawatts of wafer, 4 gigawatts of cell, and 7.2 gigawatts of module manufacturing capacity in the domestic market. And we also run 5.2 gigawatts utility scale PV power stations and nearly 1 gigawatt of distributed power station in China. And what makes GCL different than industry peers is our capability of system integration, just like the company name. So besides solar PV panels we're selling now, and our team also provide turnkey solution in all applications. Here I listed 4 applications our solution can work for. So the first utility scale application solution, Super Solar Block, is a quick, easy, grid connected installation system that fully integrated design with a substation. And for decentralized application, or we call it distributed solutions. We have experience in commercial and industrial installations in urban areas, and microgrid applications in remote areas, and as well as residential solutions for households. And this is our microgrid solution. It contains a GCL solar PV array, an energy storage unit, and energy management set that includes inverter and controller inside that can monitor the system performance with optional diesel genset for 24/7 power supply. And the system can be installed in remote area where without electricity access or with grid connection. And in places where heavily rely on a diesel generator to supply the electricity, this environmental friendly system can fully or partially replace the diesel genset in order to reduce diesel usage and ease the transportation restriction. It can be also installed in community, hospital, farm, where are essential of the power supply. And G-Home is one-stop solution that have everything you need in one package. And the all-in-one design is a pre-assembled of solar PV module, mounting system, and inverter. And you can use your mobile phone to download the apps and can monitor the system performance by yourself anytime and anywhere you want. This residential solution can be connected to the grid, and it also has option to end energy storage system, and isolate mode allows the system to be operated when the grid connection is not available. So let me end my presentation here with Arena's graph. And nowadays, renewable energy accounts less than 30% of global total power consumption. And along with the cost decrease, renewable energy and solar and wind in particular will contribute more to final energy consumption. And the share is expected to increase to 86% by 2050. And I hope everyone here today we can enjoy affordable and clean electricity. And that is end of my presentation. And if you have any question, we have our local partner, Manai in Bahrain, and to give you any support you need. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabella, for a very, very interesting presentation and very detailed, and letting us know that GCL have the full end-to-end capability from silicon to build out. So it's a very interesting company. And as you said, you have the local partner, Isabella Ni.